Radio Vision Network, and it's time to read all about it because I'm super excited. Are you ready for this? I've got Neely Tucker on the line. And you're like, wait a second, do I know Neely Tucker? Well, yeah, you know Neely Tucker because Neely is a writer for the Washington Post. And not only is he a writer for the Washington Post, he is an author. And he is one of the best authors. And I can say that with confidence because I'm holding the book in my hands. It's called Only the Hunted Run. It's by Neely Tucker. It's brand new. It just came out last month. Good morning, Neely, and welcome to Morning Coffee.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I need you to introduce me everywhere I go.
I'd be happy to. I think that your stories are so cool. Sully Carter. Tell me about Sully Carter. I need to know right off the bat. Are you Sully Carter?
Yeah, I am not, and I'm sort of glad I am not. He has a lot of my worst instincts, though. I can say that. Sully is the protagonist of this series of books that started a couple of years ago with The Ways of the Dead, and then there's Murder DC, and now there's this one. And he's sort of a headache and a hot mess. He's a reporter in DC. He grew up in Louisiana in a tiny little town. His mom was a homicide victim there. Became a foreign correspondent. Got blown up in Bosnia, so he has a lot of scarring. He walks with a limp. And he's back in D.C. when we pick him up, trying to put his life back together. He has real alcohol and attitude problem. And he also happens to be an extraordinarily good reporter, particularly on the streets. And this is back when D.C. was the crime capital of the United States. So that's Sully and his environment, what he's running around doing.
Yeah, and he's such an interesting character. He's so deep. He's got so many levels. He's a reporter. He's a detective, right? He's got so much going on that I really feel like you're building a fantastic franchise around this character. He's so dynamic.
Well, thank you very much. I like following him around because I give him a lot of, or some of my life experiences. There's probably not as much as you think. Like in the first book, Ways of the Dead, he was tracking down a serial killer. And this, again, like all the Sully books, is based on a real incident. And there really was a Washington Post reporter who was tracking down this guy who was getting away with killing a lot of women because he was killing women who would turn up missing. They weren't necessarily homicide victims. These were identified as such because they were minorities. They were in a very poor part of town. And so by the time their bodies were discovered, it wasn't, and he would asphyxiate these guys, he would choke them. And so it wasn't really clear by the time their bodies were found how they were killed. And it was the Washington Post reporter who put all that together. That reporter, that was not me. I wasn't actually even in town when that was done. I was abroad. So in some ways, yeah, Sully has some of my experiences, but in other ways, it's just sort of what any hard-working reporter does.
Yeah, but what it does, Neely, is that it lends a validity to your character that a lot of authors can't claim, right? Because you are a journalist. You understand what a journalist's mentality is. And being able to write and put that on a page is a challenge, but your perspective kind of gives you the advantage there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years now, I guess, and I've worked in more than half the United States and, 60-something countries. So, yeah, a lot of that stuff is how the internal sausage gets made in the quote-unquote media has a lot to do with public perception of crime and how events, we would call them stories in this business, are remembered and portrayed, and the media actually has a vast amount of power in that sense in how they portray what happens. And that's part of what this series does, is takes you into a big city newspaper that has a lot of resources and how decisions on very violent, very fast-moving events really do get made.
Yeah, and your settings are awesome. I really appreciate Only the Hunted Run because it's based on an actual event that happened before September 11th. This was in the late 90s, early 2000s. Is that correct?
Yeah, in 1998, the actual event is Russell Weston, a paranoid schizophrenic, walked into the Capitol building, shot a couple of security guards, and got as far as the Speaker of the House's office before he was subdued. And in this book, there is a apparently mentally disturbed guy named Terry Waters, who is much more effective at breaking into the Capitol building and winds up stabbing a congressman from Oklahoma in the eyes with a pair of ice picks. And why he did that is the story of the book. So it's not a who done it, you know that right off.
Right.
And so why he done it, and that involves both the Capitol building, power politics, and then this mental hospital, St. Elizabeth's, which is this sort of hulking Victorian, straight out of Central casting sort of gothic horror story on the east side of the city.
Yeah, I pictured like a really dark version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
that, you know, and because that book, like this one, or that book and then eventual movie, involves lobotomies, which was a standard of care. I mean,
right.
People are horrified by this now, but I mean that really was the case, and the real life character that did a lot of the transorbital lobotomies, Walter Freeman. Transorbital lobotomy is the charming process where you drive a steel pick up above somebody's, in between their eyelid and their eyeball, up into their brain, and you sever the connective tissue between the prefrontal cortex and the rest of the brain, which was, again, the standard of care. Everybody listening to this just like screamed, right?
Yeah.
But that was really what people did in before Thorazine to try to help people who had paranoid schizophrenia or other very serious mental illnesses.
Yeah, I could actually see the finger quotes you made when you said help.
Well, I mean, the guy who invented the lobotomy or pioneered it won the Nobel Prize in the late 1940s.
Yeah.
Lobotomies were done at Harvard. They were done at Yale. JFK's sister, she had a lobotomy done by Walter Freeman. Just like, that you saw in American Horror Story. If you saw season 2, there is a transorbital lobotomy in that. And that was done to John F. Kennedy's sister.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It was pioneering at the time.
Yeah, it's, you know what I like about it, Neely, though, and I just want to reset. I'm talking to Neely Tucker, who's he's an author. The book is called Only the Hunted Run, and it follows along his main title character, who's Sully Carter, who's really interesting. But I wanted to talk about a little bit about the connection, because you do have a lot to say in your books. It's not they are amazing stories, but this book specifically links the connection between mental illness and violence, and you have some real strong statements about that.
Yeah, no, I mean I think that so much of what happens in the country and over the history of it is linked between those two. Like Sully observes in the book, that the bad guy in the book, Terry Waters, that he has this very difficult past, and that if you met him in the morning when this event happened, he would have been a victim. You would have felt sorry for him. By the end of the day on national news, he's this terrifying killer. And as Sully says, I don't buy he made the transition in the afternoon. That's true. Most children, most people who grow up to abuse children were themselves abused children. So the book is about that cycle of violence and where you catch people on that continuum. That's one of, I think, the things that it really reverberates in real life, and hopefully I got some of that in the book.
Yeah, well, you did, and a lot of it comes from your personal experience. Listen, every good author draws from their own lives, and you've had some brushes with alcoholism and mental illness in your family. So how did that kind of influence the shape of the book?
Well, it gives it a real personal oomph,
Yeah.
There is a really bad suicide in this book involving a butcher knife, and that is almost exactly the suicide of my great aunt a number of years ago.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
My granddad was in a mental hospital in Mississippi back in the day, and had the electroshock treatments, which a lot of people did. So that was, those sound really like intense. But if you sit down, if you have a dinner with 4 couples at anywhere, any race, age, creed, religion, income level, somebody at that table has an immediate family member who has a very difficult story with mental illness. it's just that common, and I don't know why it's still stigmatized in the country the way that it is. But again, that's one of the themes in the book, that this is, as horrifying as individual incidents are, they're still very universal.
Yeah, they're universal, but they're so compelling, and that's what makes the book so successful. It's called Only the Hunted Run. It's by Neely Tucker. Is there a specific place that you want people to go to get it, or just find it and buy it?
Just find it and buy it. I am very democratic, lowercase d, about that. That wherever they're selling really cool books, it'll be right there.
Yeah, well, and you can always go to just neelytucker.com, right? And grab it there?
I am there. There are links on there, and on Twitter you can find me, at Neely Tucker.
No, I really appreciate spending a few minutes with you. I got one more question for you. They send me these sheets, right, to give me the information about the book. Now, you sent me the book before, so I got a chance to read most of it. But this one note that they put on this sheet here, Neely, I got to ask you, your relationship with serial killer David Berkowitz, the son of Sam.
He's a lot of fun.
He's a lot of fun.
I had David Berkowitz. I mean, people will remember he was the guy who was shooting couples in parked cars up in New York, and he corresponded with Jimmy Breslin, the famous columnist of the era up there. And that, that translates into this book. The killer gets obsessed with Sully and calls him at the office while he's still on the land, etc. But Berkowitz, I was working on a story in my day job at the Post about murderabilia, which is, the trade in ephemera of famous killers, Charlie Manson and the like.
Yeah.
And Berkowitz is now very much opposed to this process. He's a devout Christian. He's up there in Attica. And so I wrote him, asked him, what his experiences were, and he wrote me a very nice letter back. And so I asked him some follow-ups, and he sent me the letter back. And, we went back and forth 3 or 4 times. And that was, as long as you're, just emailing it back and forth, it's a perfectly fine guy to deal with. I'm glad he's locked up. But he writes a nice letter.
It's so funny. Did you ever expect that you would become pen pals with one of the most notorious serial killers of all time?
No. I mean, you wind up in this business with really, the story, the idea is you don't get rich in this business, but you wind up with a lot of great stories. And, and that's one of them. You really set out, but you go, I'm opening mail from David Berkowitz. This should be an interesting afternoon.
Yeah, that is
doesn't happen every day.
No, that doesn't happen every day. That is awesome, and I want to thank Neely Tucker. He's an author. Now, listen, Neely, when you turn this into a screenplay and you start auditioning for all the roles, you got to call me back. All right, I want in. This is going to be the next big movie franchise, right? Sully Carter is the next Jason Bourne. I'm calling it.
I would love that if they were so, and we need Daryl, the guy from The Walking Dead. Daryl, Norman Reedus.
Yeah.
That's who needs to be Sully, man. I'm telling you.
That's awesome. I wish you the best of luck. Everybody out there needs to grab the book. It's called Only the Hunted Run. It's by Neely Tucker. He's a journalist down at the Post, Washington Post. He's an accomplished author. And, man, you got to read this book. Neely, thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning on Morning Coffee.
Appreciate it. Take care of yourself.
Thanks. You too. I got to take another quick break here, but stick around, everybody. We will be back on Morning Coffee on the Radio Vision Network.
Today's show is sponsored by Hargrove Demolition, your demolition experts. Hargrove is a family-owned and operated business right here in the southern New Jersey area, bringing you 45 years of demolition expertise. Hargrove has all your demolition needs, from emergency demolition service to demolition equipment rental. Hargrove is one of the state-approved recycling facilities right here in the southern New Jersey area. No job is too big or too small for Hargrove Demolition. Contact them today at one of their 3 locations.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to give a sub some sizzle, this is the way. The way it's always been. The way it always should be. The way it always will be. Because that's just the way it's supposed to be. Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
If you haven't been to Speed Raceway, what are you waiting for? You want to live fast? You want to make every second count? Then grab the family. Round up the guys. Speed Raceway is 100,000 square feet of excitement, whether you're a kid or a kid at heart. Speed Raceway is the place for endless fun all summer long. Log on to speedraceway.com or just get here now.
When we make Beyond Natural dry dog and cat foods, we start with real meat as the first ingredient. We leave out corn, wheat, and soy. And we own where our dry food is made. 100%. Can other brands say all that? For nutrition you can trust and your pet will enjoy. Does your food go beyond? Learn more at purinabeyond.com.
Extra Innings is the nation's premier indoor baseball and softball training center, featuring indoor batting cages, 7 multi-use tunnels, and training rooms. Extra Innings can provide professional instruction, private and group lessons, and the best year-round clinics. Along with a nationally recognized pro shop that features the latest and widest selection of equipment and apparel, our experienced staff can provide you with the right instruction and help you find the best equipment for your ability and budget. Extra Innings, where the game never ends.
Today's show has been sponsored by More Than Gifts. Come see our new location in Marlton, New Jersey. Not just gifts, but more.
Sub some sizzle. This is the way. The way it's always been. The way it always should be. The way it always will be. Because that's just the way it's supposed to be. Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.